Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of BloomrPulse. My name is Tabitha Nauser, and today we're going to be unwrapping, I would say, maybe a bit of a sensitive topic or, very personal topic. We're talking about mental health, and I've got a great panel of very familiar faces here. So I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. Maybe tell me a little bit about you. Joachim, you want to start? Because we don't know each other whatsoever.
We are barely even a minute into this video, and I got to unwrap my entire mental health journey with you. But anyway, hello, it's Joachim Gomez. Very happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Purna Menon. I am a naturopathic doctor, a health consultant, and a mental health practitioner.
Ooh, love that. Okay, and Daniel.
Yeah, hi. I'm a very boring man. I'm an account director for MediaCorp. So I'm filling in for someone, and I'm pretty stoked to share myself with, not share myself that way, but share the inner thoughts, all the things that I've gone through in my life with people that I barely know. Real exciting stuff.
but that's the joy of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's no holes barred, there's no walls. You can just share, and everything stays here and then gets immortalized on this place. Hello.
On the internet forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why don't we just jump right in?
Go.
Okay, so let's start the topic, right? Mental health, a big, like vast topic. Where do we even start? I feel like it's been a hot topic in the last like maybe 5 or 6 years. Like people have taken quite an interest to it and also have realized the impact that it has on all of our lives. I love that we all come from like different backgrounds, so we can share a little bit about how what our mental health journey is. But just as a general one, let's just to kick things off. Would you say Singaporeans are very stressed? Are we a stressful society?
I think this one's for Doctor. Doctor, your observations and all that, give it to us.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think we're such an interesting country because we're tiny and yet very urbanized. The stresses that we feel are not just created by the fact that we are Singaporean, but by what's happening outside as well, because we're like a sponge. We absorb what's outside, we absorb what's inside.
Yeah.
And success really seems to just have a single straight line into how much wealth and status you're making, which I think can complicate things.
Yeah, I agree. So like obviously financial stress, career, academic. I think culturally maybe as well, like we face a lot of pressure there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know about you, Joachim, because like we both have entertainment careers, right? So I don't know about you, but like when I was growing up and I was younger, like my parents or like my family would always be like, it's great that you want to sing, you want to like do whatever it is that you want to do, but maybe that could be a hobby. It was always like, maybe you should like finish up school and then think about a real career before you go into doing all of these other things. So like, that's a stressor as well. Yeah.
I think for me, the greatest stress was my academic results. So like, I live in Bishan, right? So every time the taxi were to pass Raffles Institution, RI, my mom would look at the school longingly. She'll look at that. How I wish my son can go in there. No, you know what, Mom, I love you, but I'm sorry I wasn't that good. But so when I found this, whatever I'm doing now for a living with 987 and the whole MCing thing and even NDPs, right? My mom went, oh, finally he's found something. Let's support him. And thankfully, no amount of stresses from my mom, but I think I apply a lot of stress on myself. So it's all very much self-made stress. I apply pressure on myself because I want to do well, right? And I become a bit of a perfectionist where I don't want to make a mistake. So I just want to make sure everything I touch, everything I do is perfect. And if I make the smallest mistake, I'll harp on it for the longest of times, even though it's like a minor mistake. So that's my bad habit.
That's very interesting. I think a lot of people also can relate to that.
I resonate real well with that. Yeah, definitely. Having high expectations of yourself.
Yeah.
Because I came from a very, very odd background. Parents got divorced when I was 16 years old. So came from poverty, real poverty, man, where I remember as a kid, when I was in secondary school, even in primary school, trying to get school books, my parents would like fret. Right? And my dad was pretty abusive as well, very verbally abusive. Right? And he would tell me I'm stupid and you're dumb. And then I gave him an idea. I remember like I think my mom told me this when I was a kid. I was 4 or 5 years old. I wrote a card, the bear's dad, and we lived in Simei before. So bear's dad and Simei, give it to him, look, he threw it away. Right? And my mom kept it. Right? So I think that definitely played a role in I have to be perfect. I have to be perfect,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And also being poor made me want to really, I gotta be rich. I gotta be rich. But then when you get the money, then you start realizing, hey, wait, man, like money isn't exactly everything. I think there was this saying where you rent happiness with money. You can't buy money with happiness, right? So that's something I've learned. It's a very, it's a journey, right? I believe that it's a journey. I'm pretty spiritual as well.
Yeah.
I'm Christian, so I think my faith has helped me dramatically in finding self-value and self-worth, and also accepting that all of us are, not perfect. So
Yes.
if you're so hard on yourself, you will never be perfect,
Yeah.
right? So just take it one step at a time, right? At least for me, that's how it's helped me.
Doctor, what about you? I mean, given my story and Daniel's story and Tabitha's one, do you see a lot of that here in Singapore where people actually, their stress is all self-induced, or is it based on their circumstances and environment around them?
It's a brilliant question, Joachim. And the perfectionism piece is something I see all the time because I think a lot of Singaporeans are high functional and
Yeah.
want to be a certain way in this world. So I will say though, to the point you're saying about it's self-induced, have some grace and self-compassion around it, because where is this need to be perfect coming from? If society and your family had never touched you, would you have still felt that?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Right?
Wow.
So because I've started doing therapy, I've realized a lot of the stuff that we feel right now as adults comes from when we were kids.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to unpack, and I never even realized this before. I was like, my childhood is great. And then you look back and you're like, hang on a second. There are a few things here that I could could explain why I'm the way I am. So yeah, to your point, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
But also how do we then cope with whatever it is? Like, what are coping mechanisms that we could use, or exercises that we could do
Yes.
to kind of help
Help ourselves out.
help ourselves out, cut us
mess
some
we're in.
slack.
Yeah. So let's maybe kind of start with that whole perfectionism thing that I think many of us struggle with. It comes up a lot in my consultations, and what I'd like to tell my clients is, let's reframe that. Forget about perfectionism. Throw that out the door. Focus on being authentic and discover what that means for you.
I won't ask for like the spoon-fed answer, but how do I take steps towards relaxing that mindset here in a country like Singapore?
Yeah. So my approach with mental health is actually through the lens of what's called mind-body medicine, where we think of the mind and body as an integrated unit. It has a bidirectional relationship. I think we're very familiar with that from the perspective of the mind influences the body, like I'm stressed and then I start feeling things in my body, right? But the cool part about this is it's a bidirectional relationship. Your body can feed back to your mind.
Right.
Physiology can influence the mind. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because those are the coping mechanisms or the strategies that I teach my clients. Counseling and therapy and psych meds all have a place in mental health. But what I'm teaching my clients is to create a life where you have healthy habits, rituals, actual strategies to turn to that create kind of this foundation off of which the rest of your life unfolds. So, for example, how are you ending your day and how are you starting your day? What thoughts are you putting into your mind? When you wake up in the morning, are you looking at sunshine? Are you creating an intention? Are you stretching? Are you hydrating? Or are you just like, I'm late for my meeting. Like I have to run now and won't eat breakfast, maybe black coffee. And how are you waking your entire mind body up into your day?
Ooh, body's a temple, right? We've heard
Body's
this
a
many
temple.
times,
So why
but
did Joachim
how much
react
of
the
us?
way he
Yeah,
did?
I know.
Yeah,
I feel like
I
I can't answer this question. I can't because look, I'm pretty sure the three of you all have normal waking up hours as compared to me at 4:45 a.m. on the
man.
daily. Because I do the morning show. Again, look,
Yeah.
I love 987. I love the job, but I hate the hours. I
Right.
feel ever since going back to the morning show, like I always tell this joke, like tired and grumpy are my new middle names. I wake up at 4:45 and I go like, okay, can I sleep for 15 more minutes? Oh yes, I can. Do we have guests in the studio? No, okay, I don't have to shave my face today. So I go into the studio all messy with the hair all over the place. And Sonia will see me like that. And then I'm just counting down till 10 a.m. And I'm praying like, do I have anything on for the rest of my day? No, okay, I can go home for a nap. So that gives me like the motivation to just get the show, not say over and done, but do a good show, go home and rest, and then wake up and carry on with my day. But now naps have become very necessary.
Ooh,
Yeah, I know.
I'm
I know.
napping too. A lot.
I
I'm
read
not
it,
trying to grow baby here.
I read it online that countries where it's usually dark, right? It gets dark quick.
Yes.
Yeah.
The people are more depressed.
Yes.
From what I
Oh,
understand,
So
wow.
my
Seasonal
that's
effect,
actually a
yeah.
really interesting point because my sister lives in Denmark.
right.
And so actually from this month onwards is normally when she gets like super depressed. And so she went to see somebody about it and they were like, yeah, it's because obviously you're not getting enough sun. So already you are vitamin D deficient and that plays a part in why you're feeling seasonal depression.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it and we're like, oh my gosh, that's so interesting how one thing can have such a huge impact on your outlook for every other thing in your life.
Yeah.
100%.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's
It is,
crazy.
it is.
So how does your sister cope with everything that aside from therapy and counseling?
I think at the moment, like she's taking vitamin D tablets because like you have to, you're like deficient, right? But she is seeing somebody, she's speaking to somebody and she feels like that does help. But you know, from what I understand, like from what we speak about, there are moments obviously where like you just fall into that funk and then you can't really do anything to get out of it.
Yeah.
I think she's still grappling with that, like trying to figure out how to work around it. But yeah, I don't know because like if it happens every year,
Yeah.
what do you then do about
Yeah,
it? You
yeah.
know?
One of the tips, because I did my medicine in Seattle, which rainy, dark,
Yeah.
we had what we called happy lamps. So you can
Happy
buy.
what?
Happy lamps.
This is not the official name. I can't, the like formal name for the product is failing me right now. We used to call them happy lamps. So if you look it up, they're a lamp that kind of mimics sunshine.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
So you can, so you'd wake up in the morning and hit that lamp and start our studying.
Oh wow.
And it just
what?
kind of helps because it's giving you that sunshine hit that you're
The
not getting.
illusion of
Yeah.
sunshine.
Yeah.
With fake vitamin D as well.
Then again, like nowadays, your LED lights can do that, right? They can mimic sunlight,
Yeah.
and like sunset and all that.
Yeah.
So how do you cope with everything then?
My mom, you know, it's funny that I think with Singapore, it was Asian culture in general, we don't really like to talk about our feelings. So it's going in therapy, like, oh, my mom would say, why would I pay to talk to someone? I can talk to myself, right?
Yeah.
So I think even my mom and dad, they're not really expressive. They don't say I love you. They don't hug and all that. So I think for me, I go to therapy, obviously. I think it helps uncover a lot, like what you were talking
Yeah.
about. A lot of things I didn't know that affects me. I'm like, wait, what? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I remember they did like the little tapping thing. I can't recall, but it was a tapping thing that we did and uncovered a lot. I started crying, bawling out.
Yeah.
You know, and it really helps, I think, communicating my wife as well.
Yeah.
Because there are ups and downs, right? In any relationship. When she just gave birth as well, she went through postnatal depression.
Wow.
So because with the hormones.
Yeah, of
again,
course.
right?
Like massive rise, massive drop. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think for me, coping would be therapy, hanging out with my friends, positive friends,
Yeah.
and I think sports. Because
Oh.
with endorphins as well, right?
Do you have a routine that you
Yes.
have daily? Like, is it something you stick to? Or?
Yes. I try to stick to it. I try my very best. With work, it gets pretty hectic, right? In the morning, I try to run for at least 2 clicks. At night, I try to run 2 clicks as well. But with the baby right now, with the child, she's about a year and a half. I think that's enough cardio for me.
Running up and down the house.
And having a child really helps, man. Like, brings purpose as well, right? So when I come home all tired, then I understand, oh, I'm going through all this, nonsense for her. And yeah, daddy. In the morning, she will like, hello, hello, hello. Like, it's a bit annoying waking me up at 5, 6 a.m. in the morning, but it brings me to a new level of purpose. I think purpose is something that really helps me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, doctor, I have a question for you. So earlier you mentioned, we were talking about, like, we joked about it. We were like, oh, fake vitamin D,
Yeah.
fake sunlight. How much is faking it till you make it? Like, what is the word?
Like a slogan in your life.
Yeah,
This is something I disagree. I never once agree with that statement, but I think, doctor, let's hear from you first then, I guess.
Like from a mental perspective.
Yeah.
Like if you're really feeling like shit.
Yeah.
Let's say you wake up in the morning, you're feeling like crap. You look in the mirror and then you tell yourself, I look beautiful today. I'm gonna have a great day. But in the back of your head, you're like, actually,
Yeah.
I'm not vibing with this at all. Like how much is fake it till you make it gonna work?
Wow. That was a weighted question from Tabby.
That's very,
Are you okay, Tabby? Anything you want to share?
Good, I promise.
that's a very good question, though.
Yeah, go for it, doctor.
This is a very interesting question. I don't think I've thought about it like this before, because there's this very famous TED talk that I love by Amy Cuddy where she talks about faking it till you make it and power poses and how they actually help the psychology.
Yeah.
So there's something to it. Let's not discount that it can do something to your neurobiology, suggesting a thought to your brain. That's not true. My approach, though, is safety. I look at stress and anxiety through the lens of how safe am I feeling, and self-awareness, meaning when I'm in a state of dysregulation, what am I feeling? Like, are my hands sweating? Is my heart rate elevated? Has my breath gone out of control? Are there negative thoughts in my head? Wow. If I notice those symptoms, those like psychophysiological symptoms, then I'll ask myself, how safe am I feeling? And then you might be able to realize, well, actually, I'm quite safe right now. There's nothing really terribly wrong. It's maybe emotional safety, or it's something kind of minor. At which point, when you've now identified, I'm actually quite safe, but I'm having a stress response, I think then giving yourself a positive thought around it'll sink deeper, because you're not denying your experience. You're just, you're kind of clearing that tall grass that's clouding your view. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
I'm doing all the math in my head now, whatever she said, and it does make sense for sure.
Yeah. Do you feel like in terms of workplaces or workspaces, that I guess, are they taking the steps to help like their colleagues and things like that process mental health? Is it important? What would you say?
MediaCorp has mental wellness. They have a budget to set to us. So, props to MediaCorp for that.
Nice. Okay, good.
They give like a certain budget for you to spend to help with your mental health.
Okay,
I think
that's
it's
good.
a great step.
Yeah.
Like my sister's company, she works in Indeed, and I think insurance is covered for therapy. It's all just, they give you a
amazing.
panel. It's just free for all, go anytime you want. I think it's real important, right? Like I know Joachim's a Man United fan, and I'm a Man United fan as well. So I refrain from watching Man United matches recently because it makes me really depressed. Watching it the way, that's why I stopped.
He's just gotten
I don't
quiet
need
now.
that kind of negativity in my life.
Like, I really hope they put like a slow zoom into my face and just look at
Like with Crystal Palace, man. What is all that about, man?
the
It's
nightmare for the last 10 years.
Yeah,
But, thankfully, my coping mechanism is go for a run.
Yeah.
So my friends always say, where are you running from? But I'm like, no, I'm running
demons.
towards a better mental health, better happiness, and all that, better headspace.
Okay, I'm sorry. Something just came to my hip. Sorry. I remember I was talking about how our older generation, they don't really like to talk about their feelings and all that. I remember one of them saying as well, like, depression is a luxury. Because I remember traveling to India, right? And I visited the slums. And I was still like, oh man, I'm depressed. And all of them look so happy and all that. Like, then I started questioning myself, like, wait, what am I moaning and groaning about? Right? So is it because of our expectations of how our life should be? We need these nice shoes, we need the nice car, we need a nice house.
Yeah.
Whereas for them, as long as they have food on the table and a shelter, like, oh, I'm happy.
Right.
That's a great
I
question.
think about this a lot because I travel to India quite a bit too. Is it a privilege to to feel your feelings, right?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing is we shouldn't compare, obviously. But you're raising a really good point. How do social economic privileges make you either feel better or worse about what you have?
Yes.
And maybe it does help. Perspective, I think, can play a role in how you navigate your life. If someone is so happy, these little kids in India on a mountain road will have a stick and a tire, and they will be rolling it down.
That's what they did. Yeah.
And whereas you give your little nephew
an iPad,
the iPad or the newest, latest gadget, and they look at it for 2 minutes and they're bored.
Yes.
Right? It's all perspective on what gives you joy.
Yeah, I was just typing down that word, perspective. Perspective on life. Like, I could have $5 in my bank account and be so happy.
Yeah.
And someone could have $5,000 in his or her bank account and go, why I'm so poor? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think like a lot of people do that, isn't it? It's like it's easy to relate to because like I find for myself sometimes I kind of like invalidate my own emotions or my own feelings because I'm like comparing, right? You just said don't compare how your experience is to someone else's. Yeah. But then also at the same time, it's like, well, this person like has lost a leg or like lost an
Yeah.
arm.
Yeah.
And then here I am complaining about like, I don't know, something super trivial. Like it's not, in my head, I'm always like, then do you really have like
The right to
the
complain.
right to complain? Because like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I feel like sometimes I invalidate my own emotions or my own feelings. Do you guys feel the same way or?
I was gonna say, can I level up from what you're saying? I feel like with social media, it's a good thing and a bad thing now. The good thing is yes, the awareness is being raised. You know, we are all it's readily accessible to us. But the bad thing I feel, and this is me being the conspiracy theorist, I feel sometimes celebrities, influencers, people that have very good following on social media, I feel they weaponize mental health. Weaponize in a way, they make it a selling tool.
Yeah.
Like they'll start sharing stories about their mental health and maybe to get more views, to get more clicks. And then it might encourage people to start telling their own mental health stories, not because they want to genuinely share about it, but it's like I want to outdo your story.
Yeah,
Oh, you
yeah,
lost
yeah,
your
yeah.
sister, I lost my father, I'm going to share that story
Yeah.
now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel there needs to be a sense of balance or a sense of like, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, but hopefully maybe honesty or being genuine about it could be the words I was looking for. When
I
it
feel
comes
like
to
there's
that.
always two sides to everything, right? Like that's like the extreme, like super toxic, like side of it.
Mm.
Like somebody could be like very positive, and then also there's such a thing as like toxic positivity, where like you don't let anybody else experience any other emotion other than you have to be positive all the time. Like I feel like there's always an extreme, like when it comes to these things.
Stop it. Just stop it, please.
and how much of it is like up to us to discern,
Yeah.
like yeah.
I mean, isn't all of it up to us to discern?
Yeah.
I think about this a lot. How do we give our power away? In what ways are we giving our power away? How much does the outside world influence your own state of joy and wellness? We're actually in complete control of that, and yet at every moment willing to give that power away.
Wow, that was deep. How much am I giving away of myself?
That's the line of the entire episode then. Yeah. Can just end it here, Tabby. I'm just kidding. No. Do you have a role model, even you, doctor, do you have a role model that you look up to in terms of mental health well-being or someone that you find solace in or like comfort in when you read his or her stories or books even?
I will say, though, that in Singapore, I recently have been part of a completely free support group for sexual assault victims. And that is very unusual in Singapore, where everything is usually charged, especially with time is money and all the stuff. But through the Alliance Counseling Center, there's another Dr. Menon, actually, who runs this once a month, completely free of charge, giving her time to help people through a support group. And what I've also realized is no one single person is ever going to inspire you. You got to kind of snatch the little pieces
Yeah,
of
I guess.
inspiration and create your own,
That's true.
Right.
thing out of
That
it.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Daniel?
For me, when I get a little sad or get down, apart from talking to my friends, I like to read the Bible because the Bible has different characters, right? Let's say we look at it like a storybook. There are different characters that go through a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Then, for instance, let's say, like for example, Jesus went through a lot. I just read through his stories and then try to understand and resonate. That make me feel good, right? Let's say sometimes I hang out with my friends. I go for travel for a bit, or maybe I recently got back from Bali. Then I have met a lot of interesting people. Right? I remember I was on the beach and I was saying, "Oh man, sometimes I'm stressed about money. Singapore it's always about money and climbing that ladder and providing for an HDB flat is like what $500,000, 600,000 going up to $1 million, right? It's ridiculous amounts, right? So all these things, right?
Yeah.
And I have expectations of my mother-in-law, like, oh no, you can do this, you can do that. So it's quite a lot, right?
Yeah.
So he said to me, money is not everything, but everything needs money. Which I thought about, like, oh yeah, that's true, man. And I asked him, how do you cope with stress? He said, man, his thinking is very simple. He said, I just wake up. I'm glad to be alive. I'm glad to be healthy. Tomorrow is another day to think about. Let me just concentrate on today and power through today. I thought to myself, like, yeah, that's kind of true. Because sometimes I think too far.
Yeah.
Like 9 years, what am I gonna do? What is my child gonna be?
Yeah.
But actually, you know what? Just concentrate on today. Maybe a little bit of tomorrow, just a little bit. Right?
Yeah.
Prep a little bit. But I think today itself already has a lot of hurdles you have to overcome, right? So don't
Overwhelm yourself.
overwhelm
Yeah.
yourself. Sometimes I tend to overwhelm myself, right? Because of the perfectionist in me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you're all touching on a really important piece, I think, which is living in the now. Which I don't know. Has anyone read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle?
No.
No.
I recommend that book. It's not a page turner like a murder mystery. You're gonna need to read it slowly.
Yeah.
But it will provide, I think, solace and grounding about this entire notion of how the only moment we ever live is now.
But where do you see yourself in 5 years, Phoebe? I'm just kidding. No, I was going to say, I feel at least here in Singapore, the stigma of someone who's going through their own battles with mental health is not as bad as how it was 20, 30 years ago, where I'm pretty sure your parents or grandparents might have made this joke, like, okay, oh, got mental problem, go to Woodbridge, IMH, that kind of thing. Do you think the stigma is slowly dying, doctor, or is it still there, but less people are vocalizing their truest thoughts about someone going through their own battles?
I think it's generational. I think even our parents' generation today in Singapore might feel a little bit more stigmatized around it.
Yeah.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah. And we have to approach that from a place of compassion because they're still less exposed to a lot of the things that we are today and a lot of the understanding people have around that. But I think there's hope. The millennials with all their social media and technology influence, I think dialogues have expanded. And now with Gen Zs and like the saturation of exposure that they get around that, I think it's coming into a space where we need to strike a balance between being too much in our feelings and completely self-centered.
Yeah.
And honoring and understanding our feelings and processing them and being a good and useful part of society.
Actually, like, since you've brought that up, how would you then advise someone or like give advice to someone who's trying to navigate that dynamic? So, for example, maybe somebody that's a Gen Zer is going through therapy, trying to work, through things for themselves and trying to set their life up in the best way that they can.
Yeah.
But then they're trying to also have a relationship with their parents who doesn't value what they're doing because they come from a generation where they're like, what are you complaining about?
Yeah.
Like, what's therapy for? Like, I know myself really well. I don't need to talk to somebody about how I feel about things. How do you then get them both to bridge the gap? Because I feel like a lot of the times it would then mean that the relationship breaks down.
Yeah.
Is that something you guys have experienced before maybe? Or I don't know.
I think I kept my battles to myself. I didn't really express to my mom and dad a lot. I just, okay, I think I need help. Let's go to a therapist and see what happens. I think I was quite self-sufficient because reading people's stories and reading how my friends share about they went for therapy, they went for counseling, it gave me strength to go like, okay, I think I need it now. I've hit rock bottom, let's go. So it's not one of those like, Mom, can I go and see a therapist? I wouldn't do that. But I did share my mom, hey mom, I was going for therapy, I'm okay now. Huh? Why therapy? Are you okay? Are you okay? She starts being the concern. Mom said, Mom, I'm okay, it's not you, it's my own life and my own battle. So I think that's the one thing that thankfully I had the gift of doing.
I agree. I think I'm very similar to you as well. I remember there was this meme about an Asian dad, how he tried to help with depression. So his son texted him saying, oh, I just broke up with my girlfriend. I'm sad. I'm depressed. Mommy told me that he texted his son. Mommy told me that he broke up with a girlfriend. You are sad and depressed. They said, yeah, help me. He said, then the father replied, yeah, go stop being depressed.
Just stop.
Just stop.
Yeah.
Being said.
Just stop thinking about it.
No.
So I think that's like, to me, that's pretty much how Asian parents are. At least a majority of the old school ones, right? They don't come down, oh, son, how are you? When I lived in the US, they were like, oh, son, how are you?
Yeah.
Are you feeling? How, with Singapore, like, oh, no, stop being depressed. Go get good grades. Things like that. Where I think, what I definitely agree with what you said as well. People that are strong enough to say, okay, I'll go for therapy, then it made me feel like, okay, then it's not that taboo anymore. Not weird, right?
I remember for me when I first went to med school and I met one of my best friends at the time who'd gone through a very traumatic life, not even what your average Singaporean usually gets exposed to. And she was so in touch with her feelings, she would allow herself to feel and then kind of be free of it because she had felt.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think it's actually strong to feel your feelings. It was like this, it sounds so dumb when I say it maybe, and yet I had never been exposed to someone who dealt with their hard stuff like that. So I think the question for us, perhaps, and because we are different culturally as Asians and so on, we should, I think, start redefining what strength looks like. Now, in positions of leadership, like politicians and so on, you have a certain mantle. You have leadership. You need to be responsible. People are looking up to you for inspiration. That's a line you need to toe whilst talking about what's bothering you. So it's not that you don't talk about what's bothering you. It's that you are able to find a way to do that and yet wear the hat that you have chosen to wear in an appropriate way. And so I don't really have an answer to your question, which is a brilliant question, but I think we need to, well, two things. A, think about what is the role we have publicly and privately. And B, with that role in mind, how are we going to define how we're strong?
Can I ask a question to Doctor maybe? How do you find a balance between sharing problems with your loved ones and not word vomiting on them and everything, like emotional vomit? Yeah. Sorry, what a very weird image now. But
I'm going to try and touch on a few things. Let's maybe start with the self-awareness piece that both of you talked about. It's actually the first skill I teach my mind-body clients because self-awareness can be a superpower or it can be to your detriment where you're judging yourself too much, right?
Yeah.
So I teach them healthy self-awareness. Okay, so now say you have healthy self-awareness and you're wondering who do I word vomit to or not.
Yeah.
At that point, you need to also know your audience. And it goes back to my concept around safety.
Yeah.
Even if this person is, say, in your family or a friend for many years, if they are not going to be a safe container to receive your story well, maybe don't share it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you will only know that by actually putting yourself out there and investigating and exploring slowly. And I think that's an important process as being a human. Be brave around understanding what your world consists of and who is in that world for you. And then you'll find who is a safe person, who can I share in a certain healthy way, and who is maybe not going to help me and is never going to be constructive, even though they might be part of my circle.
I mean, life is meant to be shared, isn't it? It's about shared experiences. You want to connect with people. So I feel like it doesn't mean that you always have to go to somebody that's qualified for a specific thing. If you feel safe and connected to that person, then I think, you should be able to share stuff about you that maybe you wouldn't share with an average person walking on the street. Like,
that's right. That's right.
But yeah. So Louis does this thing now where like if I'm like ranting about something, he'll go, do you want advice or do you want to just rant?
Well, yeah, I said to my wife,
which has helped so much because sometimes I don't need a solution. I just want to be annoyed and have you go, yeah, girl, yes.
Yeah, I've just learned that recently, my wife.
Yeah.
I tried giving solutions and all that. No, she said exactly.
Yeah.
She gets frustrated with me, but I'm trying to help you.
Yeah, I was like, I don't need help right now.
Yeah.
I just want you to listen to me rant.
Yeah.
sorry, can't relate, single.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I love this conversation that we're having, but we are actually running out of time. I know we could sit here and go on for another like 2 or 3 hours. But before we like close things off, is there any like last notes, anything that you want to say about mental health awareness or advice that you want to give our viewers? Maybe a tip you can leave them. Joachim, you want to start?
I think I will leave the giving advice to Doctor. I'll just say,
the professional.
look, I think we are all human. We all have different sets of problems, but the same overarching theme of making sure that we are mentally okay. So do not be afraid to share it with a loved one. Or if you ever need help, remember you are not alone. There's always a professional. And hey, sometimes a good song might save your life.
I love that.
Yeah.
What I will say, I guess, to wrap up is even if you feel you don't have a mental health condition, as you said, we're all human, having very human experiences. Learn skills and methods to ground yourself and center yourself, whether that's, running, meditation, yoga, healthy community. Create all of that to be part of your life. And if you want to up-level and upskill, then reach out to a practitioner that can actually guide you on that because they will often be your safest space as well.
I love that. Nice. Daniel?
I think, again, the same thing with like what Joachim, just going to rip everything he just said. I agree. Don't keep Don't keep it to yourself, because I used to keep it to myself and then I started doing stupid, silly things.
Yeah.
Don't be embarrassed about it. I think everyone's a work in progress. Everyone has their own hurdles. No one's perfect. So just share it with the people that you vibe most with, someone that you trust. Maybe you can start with your best friend. Then from there, I'm pretty sure you're worth it. Yeah, listening to you is worth it. Like let's say if a friend comes to me, I would listen, because there are times where I felt alone, and you'd be surprised, man. There are a lot of good people on earth still.
I love that. I feel like we should end on that note. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for watching another episode of BloomrPulse. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Let us know what you guys are. Oh, wrong. Okay, so that's the main camera.
All time, Teligo.
And to end on that note, a beautiful note by Daniel. Thank you so much for watching another episode of BloomrPulse. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, leave just a little note about what you might be going through and how you overcame that as well. And we will see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.